So we've completed a simple base, and I've got this surface here which is quite heavy because of the tight tolerances we used. So I can cheat and just turn off the isopalm display to make it look a bit lighter. But the important thing is that we make sure those tight construction options are set before we continue modelling. So I'm just going to set that base to reference so that I can still snap to it, and switch to a new layer that I've created for the main body. And for the front surfaces, all I'm going to do is create a slab that follows this profile. And I'll use key point curves and start by snapping onto the top of the raised up part of the base. And then just do a vertical line, and I'll just guess the height for now. And then I'm going to move it horizontally to the centre line because I just want to build 1/4 again. And then in this view I'll give it some depth. But what I want to do here is think about production, so I'll use the information window to tidy up the dimensions. So I'll try 52, and that looks about right. Now up at the top I don't know what height I want yet, so I'll leave that. So I'll just copy and paste that line and then just move it over here. And it needs to be much smaller, but I still want it to overshoot the top. So that looks about right for the width, but over in the information window I can make it, say, 72.5. And I'm happy with that. Now for this angle I still don't know what I want yet, so I'm just going to create a vertical line and then rotate that till it looks about right. And I may need to move it a bit as well. And then again I can come over here and just make that a neat 30 degrees. So now I want a location that I can dimension to. So I'll look at the length of this line and maybe make it about 772, maybe another 0.5, and that's close enough. So I can put the pivot onto the end of this curve and move it exactly onto the end of the vertical. And then finally I can use extend with curve snap to get these two accurately touching each other. So I'm just taking a sketch or a scan or a rough model like this and applying some dimensional discipline to it while still trying to capture the design intent. Now for the front surfaces I'm just going to use the MS Draft tool and then pick all these curves. And it's going in the right direction, so I'll build it. And in the control window I can only slide up to 100. But if that's not far enough I can just type in a bigger number here. Or I can always use this arrow and drag it to size. And I just want to make sure that it overshoots this side a bit. So there's just some very simple surfaces for the front shape. So now I'll switch to creating the side surfaces. And I'll need to create this upside down U shape. And I'll start like I did before with a line. And this time I'll snap it exactly to the centre here and just go vertical again. And then in this view I'll try to match the sketch model. I'll start by doing it by eye, but then I'll just use the information window and make it, let's say, exactly 27 millimeters. And I'm not worried about the height here, as I've got a gentle arc across the top. So I'm just going to mirror that curve, just so that I can use it to create a symmetrical arc. And it doesn't matter where I click the middle point, as the key point will end up in the centre anyway. Now I can move it down a bit, but if I want to adjust the shape of the arc, I should be able to use drag key points. But I get a message saying that it doesn't work in the perspective window, even if I'm in a 2D view. So I need to switch to the true orthographic back view, and then the drag key points works fine and I can flatten that arc off. So I'm just working by eye to try to capture the design intent. But then I can help the engineer as well by tidying up the numerical values in the information window. So I can make that arc radius, say, let's try 800. Now you might notice here that the curve is looking very flat and faceted. But that's just a quality setting here in the control panel. And it's called Draw Precision, which I normally put up to 1 so that all my curves look nice and smooth. So finally I want to get a height that's nice and measurable too. So I'll put the pivot point on the centre and then move it up to the grid. And now I can move it down using dimensions in the prompt line. So I'll just try -25, maybe another 5, maybe just one more. And that looks okay. Now I only want half of this outline, so I'll use the Break at Key Points tool to split that at the key point. And then I'll just go back to the perspective view and make sure that I get rid of the side that I don't need. And then up here at the top, I've got this large fillet. And it's a decision I have to make whether to do this as a curve now or as a surface fillet later. But I'm just going to do a curve fillet. And it's going to default to 100, which is a bit big. So I'll just try 90, which, yeah, that looks a bit better. And I'm just going to turn my CVs on here because the key point curves are just normal NURBS curves. And something strange has happened to my arc after the fillet was applied. It's suddenly gone to 16 spans. So it's always worth turning on the CVs to check the geometry. So I can try to remedy that by rebuilding. But I need to check up here and the deviation's 0. So in this case I can do that without changing the shape or the accuracy. So I can now take those, and on Object Edit I can do an offset. And I'll make sure that I'm in the active view. And that looks like it's at the right number. So yeah, I'll use 54 because that's 2 times 27, which was my leg width. So now I just assess what I've done for the aesthetics, and if I'm happy with it, then I can start to build the surfaces. And I'll use the MS Draft again. And I've got Chain Select on, so I can pick all the way along here. And this time I want to come out in this direction. And another thing we need to consider for manufacture is our draft angle, which is really what MS Draft is designed for. So that's the right direction, but I'll need a smaller value. And it's an outdoor piece of furniture, so it'll probably have a strong texture on the moulding. So I'll do quite a large one so you can see the effect as well. And just adjust the length a bit. But I want to make sure it'll overshoot that front surface. So I can do the next one along this inner edge, and this time the draft angle needs to go the other way, so I'll make the value positive. So now all the surfaces should pull out of a mould. So finally I can intersect the surfaces. So I'll just pick all of those ones and say go, and then intersect with all of those. And then I can trim, and I'll just drag select those and keep the center. And then I'll trim all of these ones and just keep the back side. So that's then created the main shape of the charger. Now what I might do at this stage is just do a test stitch on it to catch any potential problems early. So if I just move that away, and I can see there's 2 things. I've got a yellow edge here, which I'm actually going to ignore because I'm going to be building a fillet across it. But it's also highlighted the fact that I haven't got a base surface. And if I want to build this as a separate component from the base platform, then I need to close it off. So I can just do a simple line from there to there, and then I'll do a planar surface. So now I can finish off with a round and see if that'll fix that yellow edge. So I'll do it at quite a large size so that you can see it. And I haven't got chain select, so I'll need to click all these edges. And I'm not sure what size I want on this angled part, so I'll just build it with the same value and see what I get. And it's very easy to move the mouse accidentally and change the value, so I'll just put that back to 15. And I need to include all the edges in one round operation if I want it to build the corners for me. So you can see that I've got the corner options again. So if I change this one, then that's a setback corner, and that one's a single surface. But I might also want to just make these values a bit larger and see if that improves the design. And I think that's closer to what I want. Now I'm just going to check what's going on down at the base. And I can see that it hasn't trimmed off that planar surface. And that's because I didn't include those bottom edges in the round. So if I revert it, I can now add just a 0 radius, and that will include the surface in the calculation of the corners. And you can see that that's now trimmed. So now I can do a final check to see if everything will stitch. And that all looks fine. And the round has taken care of that yellow edge that we had earlier. So in the next tutorials we'll take a look at exporting this model out for prototyping and production.